It's time for Who Watch Time and Relative Blackness in Space.
Black girls have the box.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Connie, and Robin coming to you live from the Time Vortex.
Today we're discussing episode 3 of Doctor Who season 11, Rosa. In this episode, the Doctor can't control the TARDIS, Yaz is Mexican, and Ryan saves the day.
And crackers. Lots of crackers.
We just
What?
poof to the dust.
Just a
Cheeto dust.
Actually, yes, you're right, Robin. This whole episode had a lot of...
full of crackers. A lot of crackers. Like,
Yo, why did I not
just new flavors of crackers?
You said it, and why did I not even my brain didn't even go there? That's crazy. Wow.
Just all of the crackers.
I'm disappointed in myself. Okay.
So for any new listeners, because we got a lot of followers,
right. Sorry.
we avoid. It started because we avoid talking about Graham because he doesn't really need to be here. It should have been all about Grace. So we have, some substitute names for Graham Cracker. But then in this particular episode,
us saying Graham who, and then Bayana being like Ritz, Triscuit, Cheez-It, and now all the crackers are named that.
Yeah. So, if you don't hear Graham's name after this intro, it might be because there are some synonyms. But in this particular episode, there's just a lot of saltines happening.
Old saltines.
50-year-old saltines.
Futuristic saltines. Just,
running rampant all over the place.
All over the place. The one thing, and we'll get more into the details of this actual episode, but I went to Montgomery when I was younger because my grandfather's from there. And I remember just being side-eyeing the place, and this was in the early 90s when I went, and he took me around, and we were in Mobile, and then we were in Montgomery, and we went to the church that was bombed, and all of these sites, which I think is a weird thing because I think my grandfather was let's show Robin the history of the civil rights movement, but the history of the civil rights movement is traumatic as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Where the bigger things happen. And I just was I hate this town. And immediately, and it doesn't look actually the cars are more modern and all that stuff, but it looks very similar when you go to Montgomery. It still has that kind of, it's not a big city, so it still looks like that, very similar. You can just very easily.
It hasn't updated very much.
Yeah, be transported back to what it would in the late 50s, early 60s. And so when this episode opened, and I was just ugh, I hate that. And nothing had even happened yet. And obviously we talked about it on the last episode, and we've been talking about it online. We were all nervous about this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started off and I was I hope I can still see this episode.
Yeah.
Because they come in hot.
I was going to say, and I feel maybe we should talk about it now, because I don't know that it was something I thought about, but I don't know that I put it on the agenda. Just about, so obviously, we have been advocates for Doctor Who addressing race, but I definitely was feeling some, my body was, really tense, and it wasn't to do with, are they going to do it right? It was more I'm seeing it's anytime I see any kind of, civil right, I haven't seen Selma for this reason, and I haven't watched Fruitvale Station in part because I'm from Oakland, but for the same reason, because I just know that my personal like well-being is just like I can't like at some point like there are, not to say that I haven't seen any of those things now, and especially seeing like her on the bus and it's all like deserted and just all that tension right there, and like seeing the cop at that one moment where they're like in the cuts, and I was just like my like body like had like a visceral reaction to that. That was separate from like how I felt about the episode on its own. You know what I mean? So I think it's like
kind of like talked about that a little because you know, we're now obviously we like each other since we do this podcast together. We talk when we watch the show as well. It's not like this is our first conversation about it. And there is something too about the amount of media that like we don't have that many stories. I mean, it's getting a lot better now, but like we don't have that many stories that we can go to. And the vast majority of the stories that we have are based around that time period and based in that kind of like that struggle and overcoming or the fight. And so it is also just it's a part of why you don't, you know, why you wouldn't go see Selma. Like why, like I can totally understand that. Why people like after 12 Years a Slave came out, people are like, all right, enough. Cause we've had Roots, we've had this, like how much
and
more.
like, and my thing is like, I definitely think that those stories have a place and should be told, right? Because I think that we also have not scratched the surface of those stories. For me, it's like a personal self-care situation as opposed to like they should make these things. It's like a personal, like, I may still see Selma. I'm not saying I'll never see it. It's just like, at the time when it was coming out, I was like, personally, I don't think I can personally do this, right? But I also do want to say that it's an interesting thing because like we're watching it, and I'm like, we did ask for this.
I literally wrote an article asking for it.
And also, and not just like this specifically, but also just thinking about like ways that the show should and can reckon with racism without it always having to be this. So I think one of my things was very much like, I think this episode was really well done, and it, you know, it should have been done at this point. It's been like over 50 years. But like, I also am interested to see where it, or like when, or if it will be addressed in episodes where that's not the focal point, which I don't have a lot of hope for, but I think that would be when I'm like fully like, okay, they know how to, because I think that like, especially if you have people of color as companions, like it's not like that goes away. Right. And I think that they kind of acknowledge that it doesn't go away. They did a good job in an episode acknowledging that it doesn't go away, both like in the past, present, and apparently in the future as well. So like they did that. But then now I'm like, OK, what does that look like moving forward for the show as a whole, if that makes sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think my thing that I've wanted is less of this like very special episode, which I agree with you. I think they did a good job. But like this was a, you know, like that conversation that Yaz and Ryan have when they're hiding, and we'll get more to it. And he's talking about how it still exists, and Yaz is talking about like, yes, but like, look at the progress. Like, yes, we still have to deal with crap, but what we have to deal with is way less than what they're dealing with here. And hopefully in the future, 50 years into the future, it'll be even better. And so there's this arc of history has long been towards justice. What I've been hoping for is more of those moments like we got, like they did really wrong with Martha for the Shakespeare Code, but then they like kind of fixed with Bill when they go back for that, the monster under the sea, whatever, which is an acknowledgement, which is an acknowledgement that like these things were there. And then I also want to see in the future and in the past, just that it's not color blind, right? Like that it is, and I don't want it to be the center of an episode, because I think that's kind of where we are at in the world right now, where, I mean, well, we were. Feels like we're just sliding back to the, 50s, but where, when I was growing up, I guess more, until kind of recently where it's become more blatant, it was this under the surface thing where you were always feeling like there's like this everyday gaslighting, and that's what I would really like them to address, especially when going into the past, but into the future. If you're going to be on Earth, then there are like people are going to react to Ryan differently, to Yaz differently than they react And I really appreciated the Doctor being like, go back to the TARDIS. I can get away with a lot more here, I think. And to me, that was one, because she recognizes that she was white, but also that she was recognizing that she was a woman. And so a white woman is like the safest thing you could have been in Montgomery.
Clearly.
Yeah. And so I think that's where I'm at now. It's like, I'm glad that they did this episode, but now it's about the everyday kind of subtle racism.
And also saying how they deal with how Yaz and Ryan deal with those things, right? Because it's not always going to be some dude. It's not going to be some dude slap me. Now I want to fight, but now I have to be held back. It's like little things where like they could even just look at each other and be like,
that would be
all
so
right
great.
then, and just move on, right? But like move on, because it's like yet another check or like another tick on the long list of microaggressions. So it could very much just be a situation where somebody says some wild but something that like Graham and the Doctor wouldn't notice.
I think the thing too with having Tosin Cole as Ryan is like, I do feel like he would get a lot more of like the boy, people talking down like he's not smart, having to prove himself, because he's darker skinned, like he's younger, he has the dyspraxia, which if you're a little white not a little white boy, that sounded really condescending, but if you're a white person, you could say like, I have dyspraxia and that makes me a little uncoordinated, blah blah blah. Like people will be able to kind of separate that. Or I would assume that people would be able to separate like this disorder from like your mental capabilities. But I've seen people be like, I am dyslexic, and then having people slow down. Like, that's not what dyslexia is. Like, he didn't say he was stupid. He said he was dyslexic. Like, why are you know what I mean? Like, that stuff happens. That's the kind of thing that I want to see addressed and done well.
And I think that it's going to be obviously difficult for that to happen, just because it took obviously 55 years, and the first Black writer, shout out to Mallory Blackman for writing this episode and doing a great job with it, but it took her all this time for us to get this big, very special episode, as you said, and it would take the show hiring a person of color to write an episode not about a historical moment in the past, because as we know, upcoming, Vinny Patel is going to be writing an episode about Yaz, and again, it's like set in, Pakistan, and has to do with partition, and like, it's again a very special episode about South Asians, which is again, as with this Black episode, very needed and like long overdue, but it's like, it's sort of, this bang bang 1 2, let's get these big episodes that are long overdue out of the way, which I understand, but then we have to see where they're going to take it in the future, until they hire a person of color to write an episode that doesn't have to have anything to do with race. I don't see it happening, but I mean, I guess cookies, like, let's give these custard creams out for them getting to this point this far. Which I don't really want to give them cookies for doing the bare minimum, but it's like, all right.
But they've had
after all this time.
After all this time, you have to.
I want to say two things. This episode was written and directed by 2 Black people. So,
but like, also this episode was co-written. I want to also stress that
is
because
true.
Because of what Connie said about having a person of color write an episode that's just a regular, not a very special episode about this like history lesson.
And she's written Doctor Who stuff before, so that's where I'm interested in, like, we hired you for the Black stuff, the Black parts of this episode.
It could potentially be, because I think she's primarily, like, a novel
she's
writer,
a novelist.
or like a book writer, so it could potentially be about the, like, format. I don't know for sure, but that could be part of it.
Right.
The other thing I was going to say, too, is, like, I do think that this is the first episode, and, like, we've had episodes where, like, race was mentioned, or like Thin Ice was supposed to be like the race episode.
It was literally the most it had addressed it until this episode, and it's like,
and I'm saying, like,
comparison,
this is the first time, right? And this is the first time that I truly feel like the show has actually dealt with racism.
Absolutely,
because I feel because the Thin Ice, which like if you go back, we recapped that episode. Thin Ice was very like on the rewatching it. I still like it as an episode, but like rewatching it, I was like, oh, this is like just, it's like very gimmicky. It's like, oh, am I safe? Oh, I don't know, but you know, I just.
It was the bare minimum, and I wanted a cookie for doing the bare minimum.
Yes, exactly. It's one of those, like, I'm going to acknowledge it up front. I'm going to punch a racist in the face. Look at me. Look at Doctor Who. We did this shit. Whereas, like, this one was like, no. Like, Ryan is legitimately unsafe. And the Doctor is going to have to acknowledge that and be like...
Throughout the episode. While they're... Every single moment, they're in
to actually stand up to people without, like, just, oh, I punched them in the face, and now that was that one racist...
Yeah.
That one person, and they're not like, I'm in a society where that's the case.
Which it was in that episode.
Also, I think that the other thing...
Same with Martha, just to you know, come full circle. Like, you know, it was even less with Martha, and then in Thin Ice, it was mostly only to counter... Like, it really, literally was a parallel to that scene, and they went like 2 inches deeper, and now we've gone like into the pool.
Right. But I also think that, like, in Thin Ice, it was, I punched this guy and, like, woe is me, like, or look at me, yay. But it was also, like, and it was totally fine because in those times, there would have been no pushback for that. Like, here, the Doctor did stand up for Ryan, but also had, like, this, like, we can only stand up so far because they will, like...
Right, it'll
it's not
mess
just
up
get us
all
out
of
of
us.
this. Mm-hmm. Right, it's not just get us out of this situation. It's get us out of the situation and allow to continue to be in this space and be safe because, like Rosa says,
was the climax, and it was sort of like it was over at that point, and then it was over.
No one came back and was like, "Oh, let me go find that in-loving doctor and show him like how we do things here," which is what it would have been in Montgomery, Alabama, in 1955, which is what
happened. And
that is also like what Rosa says is like. Emmett Till was from the North, and look what happened to him. And like, and then the cop comes, and it's like, yes, you have to. It's not we deal with it, and then it's over, and we never have to deal with it again. It's a you're under a continuous threat. Mm-hmm. You're in danger the entire time. You don't check one racist and then get to run around. Which is what happened in Thin Ice. Yeah.
And I think my thing is that I think we'll know the show is really ready to deal with this when it is something that happens in the future. Like, as you were saying, like, it would be great for there to be those...
something that happens in Britain. It can also be in the past, but it has to happen in Britain.
Yeah.
It's a British show, and they can't...
Right. Yeah, you're right.
And, like, I appreciate them, like, in this case, it is a little less because it's like, okay, they want to specifically talk about Rosa Parks, and they've done historical figures on the show before, but they could have chosen a Black British person.
It is a thing that I have noticed. It's a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just Britain, but like this is a British show, but like a lot of countries will use American racism as a way to like stand themselves apart. Like, oh, we don't do that. And yeah, it was completely different in America, and it was worse, but it doesn't negate the racism and the things that you did. And they use that.
Britain,
and like,
when you started it.
Right. But you
in many ways.
You hear, I've talked to British people who are like, we learn about the American civil rights movement. We don't learn about the British civil rights movement. We're like the same way that we are taught in America, like civil rights happened and then yay, or like slavery ended and then why are y'all still complaining about it? We stopped that. You know what I mean? Like that, like there's no like lasting systems and ramifications for this 300 plus year head start that y'all got. They have the same failings in their educational system. And so this is the other part about having writers of color writing these episodes. It's like, I'm in my 30s and I'm still like scratching the surface of my knowledge about the history and system and like racist history of America. And so, and that's because I had to wait until I got out of school and got around people that knew those things and got into like higher education and then people that were studying those things in higher education to even know that there was more that I didn't know. Right. And so you have to get the people in Britain who know that there's more that is not, like, there are all of these stories that are not being told to tell those stories.
Right. And even in the episode, Ryan, you know, like, they introduced this, like, oh, Yasmin Ryan's class was named after Rosa Parks. And, like, Ryan, the black one, didn't remember the details about what she did. He was just like, yeah, she drove the bus. First black woman to drive a bus. And it was just like, Ryan, precious bean, I need you to chill. But it was such a real moment because that is what happens. Like, Black history is taught so singularly.
For a day.
Right. It's like taught so singularly. It's one section, one lesson, one book that you read. Maybe if you went to a school that was more inclusive, maybe you read a few more. But like, it is so taught in isolation that like, even kids whose history it was or who have a closer tie to it, Ryan has a closer tie than Yaz does in terms of just like blackness. But like, even kids who it affects it doesn't stick. Because of the way that it's taught to us. So it's like, even here in America, that happens where it's like, you forget about, these people or what they did or the details. And it sort of is how the myth and what we were so concerned about of like Rosa Parks just being tired. And that's why this,
But let's be honest, it happened to us too. Because we were talking about the myth of Rosa Parks being tired. And we were like, we knew that was the myth, but we also didn't really know. Yeah. Like, because I put in my notes when it happened, like, because there was a moment where she's like, I can walk home. And I was like, no, you can't. You have an action that you're meant to take today. Right. Like, those things don't. But, like, it was kind of a mixture of, like, they were planning and doing this, but then she decided, like, this was the moment. And that wasn't, like, on the NAACP's calendar that it was going to happen today. Exactly. But, like, you can overcorrect, too, and be like, I know that that's a lie, that she just got tired. But then because you're overcorrecting, you're like, she planned it, they plotted the lawyer was on
6
site.
o'clock on the bus.
Right? The lawyer met her down at the jailhouse, like, and we marched at midnight, like because you are, it's not ingrained. It's not like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
we jumped right in. Yo, that was crazy.
We also didn't really follow the agenda. Like, we have some of the stuff is on the agenda, but we're still on the first item. Like, we're before the first item on the agenda.
We kind of have to skip around a little bit because some of the stuff we did talk about. Yes. So the beginning of the episode. Well, not quite the beginning.
I was like, I don't like it.
Yeah, so not quite the beginning.
But at the beginning, I did like it because, me being a church girl, they were singing a song, like the gospel song that starts off the episode. It's so church girl.
But they did the British one. They didn't do the... Let's just say...
Yeah,
they was going up yonder, right?
Jesus. No.
It was... If anyone asked you where I'm going.
No.
Oh.
Woke up this morning with my mind. Yeah. But they said freedom instead of Jesus, and I was like, do we use freedom? Because I've never used that before. Or was that just like a BBC religion
No,
thing?
that's what we do when we take our church songs to the streets.
Yeah.
Because I've been at protests with
that's what I was assuming, that it was like a protest alternate verse. But for me, that was like, we really going here.
They didn't have no... Yeah. That's one of them... Sure. The podcast that y'all can't see me, but I was swaying. That's one of them... That's shoulder bounces. That's one of them... That's one of those...
Yeah, it needs a strong drum.
Bangers.
It needs a strong drum. Yeah. As, a former church drummer.
I also want to get out of the way these accents, though.
Yes!
Yeah. My God.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm like... This is a lot.
See, here's the thing. That let's just say it. They were not good. They were not good Southern accents at all. But the thing is that I can't. I want to be mad in the Black episode kind of way about it, but literally every time they come to America,
never done it right.
It's always a terrible. Andrew Garfield trying to do this New York accent in whatever season that is.
Every American accent is it better than Andrew Garfield? Yeah.
So I wasn't mad at it. I was really just like, wow, this is just a consistent Doctor Who thing.
Yeah, it was a struggle.
Cool. Okay, cool.
Like the over pronunciation, but like the over trying to not pronounce the right syllables. Because British, Southern people drop a lot of syllables that British people don't. I was just.
It was. So
rough. I will say this. I will say that, like, shout out to friend of the other podcast, Eliana. She was casting for Hermione Granger in the Quarter Life Crisis, and she said that, like, finding actors to get the accents right was terrible. She ended up getting a British Hermione, which was like great because she said like it was very hard to get those.
Our British accents aren't much better, so it's like
right,
no,
and
not
like
at all.
we're used to like the British actors that make it over here
are flawless,
are really good.
So good. Doctor Who is still a British production TV show, and they will get, and like it's hit that mark where they will get like these like.
I think there's some American actors coming up. Yeah,
they have Mr. Big is coming up.
Yeah.
And so they will get those people, but like to flesh out an entire episode, they're going to not. So I
didn't even expect them to.
Yeah,
I just thought we just needed to acknowledge. I was like, it just needs to be an acknowledgement. I didn't expect them to do much better. I wasn't even mad when I heard it. I was just like, MLK is gonna sound a little. Okay, it's fine. It's cool.
I was really hoping that we wouldn't even have MLK, but I mean, I knew
we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So not this isn't the exact beginning, but like towards the beginning with our with our friends, they land in 1955 Montgomery, Alabama. Because again the TARDIS is taking the Doctor where she needs to go because it was 14 tries, I believe. Yeah, and she couldn't get them to Sheffield.
She said 9, and then Graham said 14, and I was like, "Damn, Graham, way to be a narc." Yeah, I think with the TARDIS, because you can tell when I like an episode of Doctor Who because then I want to keep watching, and then I end up watching 11th Hour, and I just keep going from there, which is what happened yesterday. But in 11th Hour 2, the TARDIS is like he's not able to like land when he thinks he's landing, and it's always a win. Have you noticed that? It's never like where.
I think actually,
I mean, it's low key both because like they couldn't get to Britain.
Yeah. It wasn't Sheffield, 1955.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I mean, like, I felt like this time the TARDIS was taking her to this moment. She was like, "Nah, something's fucking up in Montgomery, Alabama right now.
Yeah.
And you need to fix it." But the problem I had with that for this time is that we've gone with the first episode where the TARDIS has gone completely. The second episode where she's like, "Oh, I thought I was going by myself to get the TARDIS, and now here all of you are on this foreign planet, and then I still can't find the TARDIS." It feels like they're going like
they're feuding.
Yeah, yes, but I'm okay with the Doctor and the TARDIS having a marital spat, but I feel like Graham is going to be like, "You don't know how to fly this thing."
Yeah. Which I'm pretty sure he said.
Right.
That's what he was implying.
And Ryan was like, "I didn't do it."
Right. I think that Yaz and Ryan were more like, "Okay, well, we'll get there. We're in the vehicle to get us there."
And we can see that it can travel in time and space. Like you're not lying.
Yeah.
Right.
We've made it to Earth at least.
Right. And also we know that like you found it and it was acting wonky, which is why we ended up on that weird planet in the first place, and why, you know what I mean? So it feels like they're more accepting of her explanations and like what's going on and just like taking it in stride. My problem is that I took it, and this might just be because I'm taking everything Graham says a little to heart, and I'm mad about all of it.
A little salty, you would say, maybe?
A little salty. It's a little,
yeah,
you know?
A little parched.
You have one too many crackers, and then
need some water.
Right.
Some water.
Mm-hmm. Ryan provides the thirst.
Like
quenches the thirst. Quenches the thirst. There we go.
But I don't want a season of him like undermining her authority. Or
I feel like I hope it's not the whole season. I think it sounds like.
I mean, they get back.
They all have arcs.
Next episode. So.
Yeah. They get back, and I feel like, it's a whole arc thing with all of them, and his arc is that he is, annoying, and then hopefully we'll grow out of it.
So I just want to say, because, so my main beef with, it's not even true, it's not my main beef, but, my first beef with Graham is that the Doctor says, we've landed in 1955, Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, here we go.
And his first thought is Elvis. If you don't get
just like a white man.
Off the damn TARDIS. goodbye. And
especially in this episode,
isn't like, hey, the kid I want to call me granddad is probably not safe here. His first thought is Elvis, but you want to call me granddad.
Who also stole black music.
Right,
so.
exactly. It's like the layers on this. The layers on
top of that. But your first thought isn't like, oh, hey, maybe we shouldn't stop here because Ryan isn't
especially
safe.
Because we know.
I had a very weird consent thing happening that was making me upset because he was just like, this is my grandson. I was like, Ryan didn't say it was okay for you to go around introducing him as your grandson.
He doesn't acknowledge you as such.
Well, yes. Okay, two things. I think the first is, oh no, I've lost it already. But with regard to the consent thing, in that moment, it was important because it was a safety measure as opposed to a claiming, like a relational measure. I think in that moment...
not the first time, the second time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Which...
I've already lost the other thing I was going to say.
Sorry.
Something about Graham and...
Sorry.
I don't know.
And Elvis?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Because that made me mad. I was like, you know what? And it wasn't even the episode's fault. Like, it just made... I felt like Joanne the scammer was just like a Caucasian. Like, that's exactly what my brain did. I was just like, word. He just heard 1955 and then just skirted right over the fact that he's in
America.
With a black... Like,
Alabama's America. Who cares about where Alabama is?
But also, like, yes, absolutely. But also, like, specifically the Deep South.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that it wouldn't be dangerous in other places, just like also at the time.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Especially because we know that he specifically knows Rosa's story because of Grace. Like, she talks about it all the time. She literally has a shirt that says the spirit of Rosa, and he wants to be like, 1955, why does that year sound familiar? Oh, Elvis. As opposed to the thing my wife would talk about, likely a lot.
I'm going to give him a pass because as a Anglo/Francophile who is painfully American, it is a thing where like we've talked about when someone's like, oh, I'm British, like, oh, London, I love London, and they're like, we have more than that city. Like, maybe I've never even been to London. You know what I mean? And when you talk to people, if you've ever talked to people who, like, not from America, and you're like, I'm from here, and then they're like, what about California? And you're like, I'm from New York.
Yeah.
Have you been to LA? Bitch, I said I'm from New York. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a 6-hour plane ride. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's when my friends from the Midwest came to my friends from the Midwest came to visit me in San Francisco and was like, well, aren't we going to go to San Diego to see your mom? Like, who? When? How?
Yeah.
You got 10 hours to spare? And so it's kind of that thing where it's just like, oh, I know this is American.
Yeah.
It's vaguely, I think it was that.
It was all of it. It was all of it.
Also, like,
I was more upset.
1955 anywhere.
Elvis.
As well. The Montgomery, Alabama is really what popped, was like, are you serious, man? But also just, like, as someone who has married a black woman and, like, someone as raw as Grace, and clearly, as you just said, like, the spirit of Rosa on her shirt, like, and you're out here talking about Elvis.
I'm married to a black girl, so I'm down enough. Can you just give me Elvis?
No.
No. Decidedly cannot.
So it made me mad. I was just like, I need you to leave. And also, like, often, and like, I feel like maybe we should save this for Ryan rants. Grace needed to be there, but we can go into that later.
I do want to end this with saying that I came to the conclusion watching this episode that, like, Graham's just going to annoy us because he shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So, like,
we
things
knew that from jump.
Well, no, I know, but I'm just like, I want to reiterate to the listener, like, if you think that we're nitpicking, yeah. True, but not our fault.
But also, that was the first thing he said, and in my head, I mean, again, I'm black. He's not. So in my head, I hear 1955 Montgomery, Alabama. My first thought is, okay, I'm gonna need to
oh crap is my first.
Either let's dip, or like if we're stuck, then like how do I need to be moving?
Right,
right. Like I'm immediately in that, and not in Elvis.
Survival mode, like you should.
What?
Elvis? And also, like, just Elvis is like a particularly
sore spot for black people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, come on. So we land, and part of the reason that they're having issues is because there's Artron energy everywhere, which is like what the TARDIS is full of. It like helps with time travel and displacement.
Isn't there something else when they that one phantom time when they had landed in Cardiff to refuel on the
pretty
rift?
Sure it was Artron energy, wasn't it?
It was called Artron energy?
It was Artron. Yeah, because I watched Boomtown like fairly recently. So yeah, so then the doctor's like, okay, so we have to like investigate. And so we run into this person who is like just this white, he's like this weird white dude who's walking around in his leather jacket, scowling at people, and like low-key stalking
like, trying to be cool.
And like his American accent for the time that he had it was pretty good, but that's because he was on Revenge.
Oh, he's not American? I assumed
he's not American. He's British.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, sorry.
He watched a lot of Happy Days.
That's literally what he looks like.
He was American in the show, but he is British.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's had more practice.
Exactly. That's basically So he was in Revenge. It was a good show for the first season and a half, and then it was...
And what not? And that's why it's no longer on television.
Yeah. But anyway, so this dude's name is Krasko, and he's very clearly shady. We find out he had a stint in Storm Cage, which I believe was the same place. River. Yep. River was there. He has a leather jacket.
I was hoping she was like, "Do you know my girl?" But
right, same.
Right. It's like that was not the time.
What year was that? 51st century.
So we find out he's from the 79th century, I believe. He has a time vortex manipulator because, you know,
all the people calling him diet or low rent Jack Harkness killed me and gave me life at the same time. 99 cent Jack. I can't.
Biana called him 99 Cent Jack, and I was like, who are you? She scanned 99 cent. What is that? And I was literally thinking that she scanned a bottle of Jack Daniels and it was 99 cents. And I was like, I mixed the whole damn scene. And then Connie had to break it down for me. And I was like, oh, that makes way more sense. Very embarrassed that I didn't put two and two together.
Fine. So we find out that this dude, and like I had a feeling because I was trying to figure out like why does he care so much about Rosa? Why does he care so much about like the buses or whatever? And I was like, is he just racist? Like, is he just some like dude from the future who was like, I hate black people, so let's go fuck up the time for them? Like, and that was the case.
I kind of wish there was more to it. Like, I don't know that I necessarily need more. But I kind of wish there was more. I don't know if that's the best way to explain what I'm feeling, because it just was just like, he's just, I mean, I don't need like backstory of like, this is why he hates black people, like someone attacked his family. Like, I don't need that kind of backstory, but I just like, he just kind of casually mentions that he killed 2,000 people, but like never explains like what that was about, or like, is it just him? Is it a community of people that he is a part of? You know, like some futuristic KKK. Like, what? I just needed just a little bit more.
Lone wolf types. I think they had it much more like a lone wolf situation, which I see how that would be like.
Maybe that's what it is. That's sort of like giving me pause about like, I just feel like he didn't have a lot of backstory. And I'm waffling back and forth on whether I wanted more backstory, because I don't want it to be like, you know, this is why he's angry about it. Like, there are just people who are racist and awful, and that part is fine. I just kind of wanted to know, like, what's your deal, dude? Like, we found out, you know, like in the Dylan Roof was in all these, you know, groups on, you know, Facebook and YouTube, and like, you know, that kind of backstory stuff of like, what else were you doing with this racism?
I think for me, I did not like it, although I do get what you're saying, because I do feel like it was very like isolated and
so surface
in some ways. But I liked it in that one, it wasn't like, oh, we have to save Rosa from some Daleks. I feel like that would be like, really? And then I also liked the time element of it. I felt like that was the main focus, was time, because we talk a lot about like, I think
doctor can do as opposed
the fires
to trying
of
to
Pompeii.
Stop racist,
there's like there are episodes where they specifically, and usually there's more going on, but like there are episodes where they focus on like the nature of time, and I think that this was a cool way to explore that while also explaining it to the companions, because this is their first time traveling in time. So like, or traveling at least in the past. It's still not clear what was going on in the last episode, but mostly just because space. But like, yeah, so I liked that idea while also making it a little bit different for us, for those of us who have like seen all of like, there are fixed points and there are like points that are in flux and all that kind of stuff. So like seeing him being like, okay, I'm just going to change this little thing and see what happens if that changes the trajectory. I thought that was interesting as like a concept.
Sure.
Yeah. I did like that it was kind of surface, or not surface, but just that there wasn't really an explanation, because I do hate when there's like a, you know, I was accosted by a black person.
Yeah, no,
and
I didn't want that at all. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, no, racism doesn't make any sense.
Yes,
whether it's
absolutely.
like 1955 or the 79th century, it's like, it just is it's just this like, they got something wrong, it doesn't make any sense, and then they jump around in hoops to like fit this ideology that is dumb and doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And I think
I did hope that there was going to be more of a, what is the nature of race, like, is Stormgate
Cage?
I never thought the Storm Cage was on Earth before. No, and I'm like, is it on Earth?
No.
So then
it's
where?
Own planet.
Right, but like, is it like? But it's full of humans. So like, what is the nature
necessarily
of
only
race
humans.
Relations?
Oh, sure.
But you know what I mean? Like, what is the nature of race relations in the 79th century? Because now we know about aliens. And like, that was like one thing that I do totally agree with, that I don't know if you guys have heard this, but like the thing that will fix racism is the introduction of aliens, because we're tribal and we're like, fuck, we can't be fighting with each other. We got to fight the blue people.
Well,
or
I guess that's what Doctor Who used to believe, but I would like them to stop that.
Well, like, see, and I was struggling because I was like, wow, this is a really bleak envisioning of like the future, but also like low key, I kind of feel like that's probably what's gonna happen. You know,
I was kind of
what
we talk about all the time, of like, if the world in the future, as we've seen on every other Doctor Who episode, is somehow post-racist, how did we get there? Like, there's no
right.
Like, it doesn't actually make sense for them to be post-racist, and so like, this is the first time that we've experience a character from the future
so much theory and like real work that you can't even really put that.
You can't even really put it together. So it's like, finally, this is the first time the show is like actually addressed that there is racism in the future. And so I just, I don't want them to explain like, this is why, but just like explore like what that means in the future. But to counteract what I said, I think it does help that he's not too much fleshed out, because he's not the only racist villain in the episode. So like, he shares that with
everyone else.
What's his name?
James Blake.
Blake the Snake, and the police officer.
Which is like, James Blake is a musician, and I just feel like it's really unfortunate.
It's his real name though.
But yeah, so there was him, there was the cop, and really the reason they focused on Krasko was because he was like actively changing time, and that was they were like, no, you can't. And like, I
think he did share his time with like Blake being super racist and them focusing on that and all. And I, for one, need to say it. I appreciate that it felt very white male heavy, but I appreciate the diner woman who was kicking them out, because white women did it too. Like,
and they're still doing it. So
it did feel very white male heavy, especially considering that the Doctor is presenting as a white woman. But they sprinkled one person in there.
Well, I mean, there was also the woman who dropped her handkerchief when Ryan.
But that was very much her husband.
It was male heavy. But what I'm saying is that it very much embodied the way that like that dynamic work.
Yeah, in terms of protecting white women. Yeah.
Do
you want? I wanted to say this before we move on about the villains. I liked that you very much got the sense that it was a system, and the system was a villain as much as all of these individual people.
Yeah,
and James Blake being like, it's just the way it is. Like, and I hated, but I appreciated like Graham being like, we don't have that problem and having that kind of superiority, which is like, you just ignore it. Yeah. But because that is very much like indicative of how racism works today, where you, especially in the Bay Area, oh my God, just remember Barbecue Becky, Permit Patty, they were all in the bay. Of these like liberal, we don't deal that is we are above that, and being like, no, you're very much not, and having that like in your face of like a surface level racism, and then like the systems and I'm just trying to keep the status quo. I'm not a bad guy. I just think that like I believe in tradition and traditional values or whatever. Mm. And the circles people talk themselves into to like keep
that system,
yeah, uphold that system.
And I think that was one of my things with Graham too, and like that was like the difference between the two of them was where like the doctor was very much like, y'all are not safe, you should go to the TARDIS, or like make sure you do this, or standing up to that cop, but then not obviously didn't get the same kind of like, it wasn't the same gravitas because she was a woman, so like kind of having to deal with that for herself. But like all of these things are happening. Meanwhile, Graham is like, nah, you won't die. A couple more hours won't kill you. Or he's like, oh, we don't do that here. Or like, oh, Elvis. So it was like, which I felt like as a writing choice was like good episode wise. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But also like he could still go sit somewhere.
Sure. Yes.
But I also wonder if that was if
it was like an actual choice, like a
if they knew what they were doing, or if that's just how they write.
Right. But then I also am kind of like, now I want, if we're going to have that moment, because we know we're going to have that moment where Ryan calls Graham granddad or whatever. Like, if we're going to have that moment, I think there needs to also be a moment where Ryan is like, yo, you need to be out. You need to check your privilege in a way that's like more than just, I was married to a black woman. Yeah. Because it felt like that was a lot of what he was doing this time.
Yeah. And I think the thing that, like, so the doctor has a lot. She's more international.
Galactic?
She's more galactically aware and exposed. But she also, and she's got time, and she's like the oldest of them all, but I feel like there's a moment where she pretty much explicitly said, when she was telling like Yaz and Ryan asked them to go back to the TARDIS, or saying like if they wanted to go back to the TARDIS, and Ryan says like Rosa can't go to hide in the TARDIS. But she was basically saying like, I can put my body in between, like I can do so much. I can move around, and like this is the thing that I want a lot of white people to hear in this. It's like I can use this privilege for good, and I don't. And like, and sometimes to do that, you kind of hide in plain sight or whatever. But I didn't hear Graham
especially that, yes, especially because in the climax when he's sort of when they realize, I felt differently about that. Yeah, I felt differently about that because I didn't read it as, and maybe we should wait, but I didn't really read it as like he was the guy who needed the seat. I thought there were like more white people coming onto the bus after him, and that's why she needed to get up. But I feel like, as you're saying, he was just very much like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't like this the whole time. Whereas the doctor was very purposefully being like, this is how I'm supposed to use this body that I'm in order to propel this really awful action. And I get that that's why, because like he has to see her get arrested and stuff. But it's like the reverse of what your instinct as an ally would be. It's like a wannabe ally of like what he thinks.
Yeah, for sure.
So there is that conflict there.
I don't think it was like he was the person, but she's saying if you get off the bus, there will be enough seats. Yeah. So he's like, I don't want to be on this bus at all.
Right. Yeah.
And so he's like, I don't want to be. And
because when they stopped, he was like, "Oh, this stop, right?" Right. He didn't even stop to count the seats. Yeah. In the way that the doctor was like on their way, she was like looking.
Yeah, right. And he's very much oh my God, you're a part of history. We are on the bus. We were always supposed to be on this bus. And he was like, nah, fuck that. I don't want to be on this bus. Which is like not like understanding like they just did all this stuff to make sure that this thing happened, but he still wanted to have plausible deniability of you know what I mean? Like that wasn't me.
Or not have to and he had that privilege to be able to say
exactly, I don't
want to be here, where it's like Ryan literally got on the bus to increase the number of people on the bus in order to make the moment happen. Like, he added himself into the situation, whereas
was running around.
He was doing a lot. Whereas Graham was like, I want to erase myself from this, and Ryan was just like, oh, y'all need more people? Let me add myself.
Graham was also it's the idea that I'm erasing myself from this narrative.
Right, but also he has the privilege to do that, right?
Right.
Like, personally can be like, I had nothing to do with that. Mm-hmm. And in this case, he actually had something to do with it. Mm-hmm. And so, but him being like, I don't want to do this. It's like, dude, at this point you're here. This is what you came here for. If he hadn't hopped up,
right,
would have been fine. Like, not that he wouldn't have been there for it to happen, but there would have just been a different person standing up. But he was so eager to be done.
That he made himself more part of the story.
He's a part of the thing, right? Like, he's the white man who needs to be
seated.
Who needs to be seated.
Yeah.
So that part was kind of like I liked it in a that moment where the doctor's like, I caused Pompeii. So like in that sense, I was like, okay, I see what they're trying to do, but I also just felt like I just don't like Graham, I guess.
That's the sum of it, really.
The thing that I did not like about it was that we were supposed to somehow feel sympathy for the fact that Graham was that person. And I was like, fuck you.
Right, yeah.
I was reading a thread.
The close up on his eyes, like, I don't
want to be,
Yes.
And I was like, well.
You are.
Deal. I also think that there's a lesson in that oftentimes white people don't want to be culpable, right? They don't want to, like, I personally didn't own you. Right? Like, my ancestors came over in the 30s, not during slavery, right? So it's like they're trying to keep distance.
Yeah.
And then in the moment now where you have to actually confront the fact that you are actively a part of this system, and then it makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I think in that way that's important. I just, again, is that going to be explored further?
Right.
And I'm still not feeling any sympathy for him.
I don't feel sympathy.
Yeah.
I don't need I'm just saying I didn't need the close up and the tortured eye.
Because I was reading a Twitter thread of, people who were reacting and stuff, and one person was just like, oh, there was a moment for him? I wasn't focused on him, I was looking at Rosa. And so I feel like, we noticed it because we're just like, ugh, Graham, why is your face popping up?
We're close watching.
We're close watching, but I think for this. But I think that, maybe, they did focus on him when they didn't actually have to, but I'm hopeful that a lot of audience members were focused on Rosa as opposed to that moment from Graham. And then, being able to because she was indeed given more weight. We just noticed his little blip.
To me, it was more of the, I have this thing about Peter Jackson, which you guys are going to hate me about again bringing up, but I haven't watched those other ones, but he did his King Kong. It was so heavy-handed. You're going to feel emotion. I'm going to do a slow close-up. The music is going to swell. The music will change while it's swelling. I'm going to give every single film school, this is how you pull emotion out of someone in this moment. And it's sometimes you just have to let the writing do that. And it needs to be more subtle. And I feel like that was my biggest thing, and why I had that immediate reaction was I don't need the close up on Graham. I don't need the longing, I don't want to, I don't.
Well, I do feel like this episode was very heavy handed.
It was. The whole episode was very heavy handed. And so it did go along with that, but also because it was a Graham moment.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that yes, it was a Graham moment, so I'm more annoyed than I normally would have been, but also it was a heavy-handed Graham moment. Mm-hmm. So they meant it. They very much meant for you to feel sympathy for him in that moment, because it wasn't him it wasn't the screen was on Rosa and he was in the background and there was a depth of field type of thing where you can see him and but she's still taking up the majority of the screen. It was all his face with the lip quiver, and I was just I don't give a fuck. Stand
I don't.
Yeah. Stand there and make this thing happen, and you get no sympathy from me.
So, Rosa, in general,
as a concept character.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it's funny because as I was like watching this, I thought about, there were like lots of different Doctor Who episodes that I thought about. And so this one reminded me a lot of the Unquiet Dead and Unicorn and the Wasp, especially the end and when like after they've done the thing and they're like, look at her legacy. Let's go and far into the future. There's an asteroid, or like her book is being published 1,000 million years after she was alive. So like that part was very much. Yeah. Vincent too. Yeah. So there were like those moments, it felt like, where we had that, which I thought it was like it like tracked with how Doctor Who handles historical figures. Yeah. So
especially with like
that.
The whole like everything's new audience, like new people coming into the show, like this is a tradition, like get used to how things, like something that's familiar for Whovians and like is sort of, I don't know what the word I want. Coding is not the right word, but it does fit. In terms of like coding a new Whovian's brain into like, oh, okay, this is what happens when you go to the past. It felt very like...
For a very special... not a very special episode. This one was definitely a very special episode, the way that the Agatha Christie one and the Dickens one wasn't. But that when you go to a... And Shakespeare even too, when you go and the center of the episode is a historical figure that you know. And who has shaped culture in some way.
I would actually call those other episodes very special. Like, this one's very special because of the race issue, but there was no... It does track with how they do treat historical episodes, where it's like, count the references. Like, that's heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It's there were 50 Agatha Christie book references, like title references in that episode. And that's technically heavy-handed, but they just couldn't have fun with it this time. So, like, I would actually say they're on par in terms of, like, how, like, overly, like, all right, we get it. It's Agatha Christie, which I love that episode, and I love Agatha Christie. So it's like... It's a thing that I'm able to enjoy easier because it is something that is light as opposed to something that is heavy, but I do feel like it's the kind of the same weight. It's just like, all right, but racism isn't fun. Like, you can't make fun race references.
To me, it wasn't a murder mystery.
Yeah, to me, it wasn't so much the references of it. It was like, it really was Yaz and Ryan conversation at the trash cans. I was just like, which I appreciated, but I was also like, it's the way I feel about like Papa Pope in Scandal, where it's like, it's beautifully written, but no one talks like that. And if someone broke out into monologues that often, you would be like, boy, what?
Okay, but
and so
no one talks in Agatha Christie quotes either. Like, it's the same thing for me.
Yeah. No, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but sure.
I want to kind of go into the two things about the episodes that we haven't really talked about, which was one, this is just purely, it needs to be said, the Doctor is Banksy. Just totally Banksy.
That was so good. That was so good. Especially Jodie's faces where she was just like, or am I?
Or am I?
Just like, I love you so much.
Or do I? Right.
And I like that they were able to lace that like joke in there with like how heavy this episode was, like that and the Steve Jobs thing. Like, yes, it's a grand moment, but it was still like, oh, they found a way to put some humor in here. Yeah. That's nice.
I literally, like, he did the Steve Jobs thing, and I was like, oh, Watercress got jokes. But and I kind of touched on it, the racism speech, but, like, the Mexican jokes with Yaz, like, that felt like the first time it was like, okay, they're ignorant, and, like, they don't know, like, they're not exposed to Pakistani, South Asian people, so they just assume Mexican, like, and it kind of like the smirk of it all, which you do get, like, that happens in real life when like someone is so ignorant about something and then you're like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that does happen with cultural ignorance like that. But then they kept doing it, and then even Yaz was like, kind of like, oh, I guess I better just sit my Mexican American self down in the white section. Like,
she said South Asian Mexican, which I feel like is slightly different. But yeah.
But it's just like the fact that they continued it, like it was a running gag, like Banksy, or like, you know, like it just bothered me because it was, to me, like, this is like a very serious episode, and it is about like and she does, and like they did want to acknowledge that like there is a difference between what Ryan and Rosa are going to deal with versus what Yaz is dealing with, and there are degrees into which the like you can walk and exist in this Jim Crow world. But the third, fourth mention of it to me was more like minimizing and like dismissing the fact that like Mexicans and Mexican Americans definitely have their own stories and their own struggles that happen in this world. And like, yeah, this is not that story, but it's not, I don't know. It was kind of like, well, at least I'm not black. You know what I mean? But it's like, okay, but that doesn't mean that they don't have their own, like, that's
I don't know. Like that. I felt like maybe there was like one too many times mentioned, but I did feel like they were trying to explore the fact that like Yaz isn't black, but also that the situation is not black and white. Because I feel like oftentimes when you think about that, like about Jim Crow, you think black people, white people. And so her having to be like, I'm not fully sure where I fit in here, but also knowing that I very much don't belong.
And I think that is what they were, and I appreciate that that's what they were trying to do. I just felt like the second or third time, because it was not, I don't know if it was really played for laughs, that last moment when she's like, decides that she's going to sit in the white section. They had already done like kind of 2 or 3 mentions of it, and then she's like, well, I guess I'll just sit my South Asian Mexican self in the white section. It was like, I don't know, I wish I would have taken better notes about it, because now it's like, whoop. But it felt to me like, I get what you're trying to do, but that was in poor taste.
Oh. I didn't really feel that way, because I feel like, as someone who is often, who used to live in Washington Heights, and people would come up to me and speak Spanish, because I'm very light-skinned, and no one knows how to be racist against me, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I felt like, yeah, I just was going to make this joke about it because there's nothing else I can really do. Like, I didn't feel any kind of way about it, and I think it was rule of 3.
Yeah.
I got what they were trying to do. I just felt like they stepped their foot on the gas a little too much. Both sides and the cinematography were on point. This is a pure, I'm a film nerd thing, but whoever, like, beyond the director, whoever was a cinematographer for this episode, you get a standing ovation.
I did not like the use of Rise Up. I think it is.
No.
I think the problem is that it's been overplayed in America, and someone on Twitter was explaining, like, she's a Scottish black, singer, and so like that's probably why they, felt like, oh, this is an inspiring song and it's a black Brit, like, cool. But every single American TV show has used that song at some climactic moment, especially to do with race and black people. And I'm just like, and then the show literally never uses modern music. Like the last time was like season 1 or something. Like, it just felt like, when do we use modern music, especially in a especially in a flashback episode? Like, we couldn't find a period appropriate song. Like, there are plenty. Like, that's where
we opened with a spiritual. Right. We could have closed with the spiritual.
Right. Like, so that's, I needed to get that out, because I was
we
just
shall
like,
overcome one day.
Right.
And it would have been heavy-handed, but at least you would have been like, okay, yes, of course, obviously,
especially
use that.
If you introduce Martin, you're going to have to use We Shall Overcome. Like, Mahalia Jackson was right there, but also I have to remember that they might not have the money for the rights to those songs. So like, there are lots of levels to this, but there's probably a song they could afford that they could have used that was period appropriate and wasn't.
Okay. Anyway, Ryan rants and raves.
I will say this about Ryan is that I at the end of this episode, I was like, you know what? Age ain't nothing but a number. And so you have even more. It's like, now it's you and Ty and me. I'm gonna get over it. I'm gonna get over it, because they have, when we go to, and Yaz, but when we go to the Yaz's big story, I think that's when what's his name? I made a whole appreciation thread about him.
Oh,
y'all know who I'm talking about. He was fine. He's on the little like special guest montage thing. And I was like, who is you, sir?
Yeah. Ryan is just, he's adorable. And
adorable.
I felt like this was his best, like, episode. Like,
if it's sort of like a 3 and 3 and 3, that makes sense, because this is the climactic, scene for him. And now I'm realizing that we said it last week, but like, it hit me again that the last 3 are going to be Graham, and then the finale is somehow all of them. But like,
and the doctor.
Those last three.
But yeah, no. So I appreciate. Like, I think he was kind of like that conversation behind the trash can with Yaz, where he was talking about like having to contain his anger and like always having to do that, and like this being harder, obviously, because you have to deal with like much more overt like racism, but also acknowledging that like this isn't the first time. Like, my grandmother had to teach me and like keep telling me like, hey, you can't like react in this way all the time. Him like fanboying over Martin Luther King and Rosa, and he's just like,
and calling them
yes,
by their full names. Oh my god! I was like, if you don't stop with this bullshit,
it was so cute.
Bullshit.
It was so cute.
It was so good. He was black.
He was like, yes, Martin Luther King. Rosa,
that and also
I'm
like,
sorry, Rosa Parks. I'm sorry. He said her full name, and I was,
government,
and she looked at him like,
boy, if you don't get over this coffee.
That is my full name. It's my whole government name.
And I also like that we got to see like some of his character traits that so far have been like a dude, are you serious? Like, actually work out. Like him touching the pod in the first episode, and like him being like, ooh, can I press these buttons? Or like, can I enter this race? And everybody being like, no, you can't. Chill. And then this time, the doctor being like, don't touch that vortex displacement or temporal displacement thing, and he touches it, and then he saves the day, right? Like, so I thought that as like an arc was
look
cool.
At the character consistency, the character development. Look at these character traits following from one episode to the next. Like, wow, like what? Wow.
We haven't had this in a while.
It's been 3 episodes only, and we already know who he is as a person.
Wow.
And it hasn't been weird.
But my whole thing, again, I'm sorry to be a downer, is like, are we going, is it next season? If he comes back next season, he better come back next season. Is he still going to be this person? Because that's been my biggest thing.
I think
and
yes.
I think yes as well, because Chris Chibnall is decidedly not Moffat. And that is, I think, a Moffat issue.
Yes.
But because it wasn't an issue for other showrunners.
Right.
Or the only other one. But I do think that, like, when Ryan saw that time displacement thing, like, we all knew.
I knew it was going to get it.
And he was
like, no way.
And he's
not picking that up.
He looked just like every, like, toddler child who was like, that's going to be my toy. That's my toy. And you like, and so when it happened, I was like, of course. But it was also adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also like that it was a moment too where he used a weapon and it like worked out too. Like, given last time with the gun, and that was did not, you know. And
then also,
it didn't work out the way that he thought it would.
When it did work out, he said, "Nice job, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan." And I'm in love with this nerd.
Cute. He is like the best ever.
Yes.
This is nerdy as shit, and I am.
And then he was like, "Move the car, Ryan." Get the
And I was like, he is adorable.
Like, psyching himself up, he's like, all right, gotta get white people on the bus. There's not no white people on the bus. Like,
I know.
All right, he's
like, they don't want to talk to me, but I gotta do it.
I gotta do it. All right, let me run around, and then he got a car, and it's just like, okay, I can do this. I'm doing it. I did it. Yes. All right.
Oh.
Mission accomplished. Side note to Yaz, in that she also I like also her character consistency, in that, like, you know, Rose is like, well, what are you doing back home? Like, what do you want to be? And she's like, in charge, which goes back to our sorting her in Slytherin in our first episode, because she's just like, listen, I already know what I want. I want to be in charge. Right. Thank you very much. So I appreciate that you have that.
Like, I need you. You want me to be in charge. Like,
yeah.
I'm looking around at the roster here, and trust me.
Oh, and then this is also a Yas thing, but you know, we might as well just start talking about them together. But at the beginning of the episode, when the guy comes for slaps Ryan, she like gets in his face because her police officer instincts, and I was very like, wait, whoa, what are you doing? Because they don't trust you either. No, don't do this. You're not in uniform. Don't do this. But like, she immediately stepped in like she would in the present day in her job. She was just like, all right, like she like blocked him even though she's like tiny, and it's just like, no, come on, calm down, like, you know, as, you know, everyone else kind of dealt with Ryan. And I appreciated that small moment of like, oh, look at you, like.
And can we just talk about the fact that when they climbed through the window and she was talking about how she hadn't done that to so-and-so, and Ryan said he was punching way above his face size, and she said,
oh my God.
She said, well, did you accidentally pay me a compliment? And he was in his head was like, one no accident.
He said, oh,
no accident.
Anyway, that was no accident.
Wasn't no accident.
You knew what that meant, yes. Don't be out here trying to act brand new.
Well, you know, she was trying to play coy. You know, I see her game. I see it. I peep game, girl. She was just like, let me find out. Was that on purpose? I know it was on purpose, but let me just find out how he gonna react. And then he kind of dropped the ball a little bit, but you know.
No, let me just say that as like someone who has had to deal with Bill and Heather and their clubbing, who's had to deal with Clara and whatever was happening with Danny, and then doctor. also to be like reading Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince like for our other podcast, like to see a like at least starting like the seeds of a developing romance in a way that makes sense has been refreshing.
And, you know, the lack of love triangle that's about to go down is
and
also
it's like
refreshing.
2 people of color.
Listen,
like, there's just so many
who are age appropriate. Going through like sharing
over together. They're
sharing
just, like,
life experiences that would bring those people together.
They're just it's beautiful and I love it.
I'm happy.
Also, I died when Ryan walked up to that white man with his fist out, like he was going up talking about what's up, blood.
What up, blood?
I was like, are you serious?
When he said what's up, blood,
I died.
He was like, "Oh, I'm playing the I'm going to make I already make you uncomfortable.
Let me use some 2018.
Let's just go."
Right. He like hit his shoulder. He was like, "Hey, what up, blood?
What up, homie? How's it going? Yeah, that's my granddad.
Fist out, like
exactly." No, okay.
You know what?
All right.
But I think that was also very relatable because it's like it's the one time where you get permission to like
agitate back,
right? And like to do it where you also
him on the shoulder. He let Graham walk up first. Graham was like, "Oh look, it's just me," and then it was just like, "Oh," and then there's my grandson, and Hobie turned around like, "Oh crap!"
Like, oh God.
Like that was coordinated. You know it was.
Yeah.
Like you go there first, and I'll come right behind you.
I messed with that.
It was so good. It was so good.
That was great.
And then, you know, we got to talk about the fact that as everyone knows, including Graham, who said it, Grace should be here. And then instead, but I do like the way that Ryan was able to like diffuse the moment for himself, like in a character sense, and not like we don't like Graham sense. In a character sense, he was able to sort of like deal with his feelings on it, and like, you know, it just felt like a very real moment of like, nah, she would have caused a riot, like. Because she would have it. It's like, look, that's what I love about her, but also I would actually not want her here because she would literally cause a riot, and we can't have that right now. And it felt like what any of us would say about our like fiercest grandparent, where it's just like, man, if Nana was here right now, whoo boy, you know what she'd be doing,
scraping up bail money,
right? And it's like that like low key embarrassment you feel, but like pride at the same time, where it's just like, dang. Mm-hmm. I wish she was here, but also I'd be so embarrassed if she was. So I felt I enjoyed that moment in universe. But in real life,
I like that.
Grace would have been able to handle herself, and it would have been fun.
I like that. Yeah, exactly. Because I'm like, I liked that part, but I also like. And you know, we've been saying this since the beginning. Like, it should be Grace, and I think in this episode in particular, especially because she got brought up so much, it's like. You know, Rosa Parks is her hero. Like all of these people, like Ryan reveres because of her. And then Graham knows these people because of her. Right. And so like it just felt like if we had like a black woman there and like, especially an older black woman. And I still think that like dynamic of like grandmother and grandson would have been really amazing. And so as I was watching it, I was very much like separate and also like, included with my annoyance at Graham. It was also just like I really felt like that was a missed,
especially because she was old enough to have been alive when that was happening, either as a baby or like a toddler. Like I don't remember how old her character is supposed to be, but it was only like what?
It would have been it would have
like her parents would have experienced that, like
it would have been a living history moment for her, like in the same way like I was obsessed with like Woodstock and stuff growing up, and my dad was like, oh, I remember when that was on television. I was like, what?
Listen, my dad was like, I was in the building when they shot Malcolm X, and I'm like, there's no what. Yeah. But like it was like a big thing. It wasn't like it was an intimate space where it was just like, oh crap, you saw that. But it was just like he was just close enough. I don't remember if he like maybe left or if he was there, like, or maybe after, like it was something where it was like around the time. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, can you just start over because you just didn't. Or just, like, the fact that, like, our parents are old enough to have, like, seen or attended, as my dad said he did, the March on Washington and, like, that kind of stuff, where it's just, like, this stuff did not happen that long ago.
No. Nope. 50 years, not that long. Well, I guess, what is it, 60 now?
60, yeah.
But still, not that long. I think the other thing that I really enjoyed, and this is, like, my last kind of Ryan rant rave, the way in which he's dealing with this, like, oh my God, this is really real, right? Like, this is, like, it's overt, it's dangerous. This is what I've read about in school. But also, like, the pride, like, when he sees Rosa Parks, and when he has Martin Luther King, like, that ties him more to his nan. And, like, now I understand. It's like when I, like, again, we opened this conversation, when I went to Montgomery, Alabama with my grandfather, like, when I saw this episode even, I missed my grandfather because, like, I have a emotional tie to it that is, like, personal and not just, like, something from a book. And so, like, I have all these, you know, like, he had all these conversations with Nan, and now he's in the space that they've talked about. And so he can, like, really visualize. And so I appreciated that. It was like, you know, he says the joke of, like, she would have started to write and stuff, but it was also, like, a wistful, I miss, like, I'm getting to the point now where, like, I'm not just feeling grief, I'm feeling, like, I don't know what that is, above, beyond grief, that, like, you know, sense of connection and remembering good times or something like that.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be so great if, like, Grace were alive, but, like, in the present, and, like, he was like, I can't wait to go tell her. That would have been so much better.
Or just on the TARDIS. I just feel like y'all are grasping for the bare minimum and, like, put her on the TARDIS.
We're just asking for scraps.
We're just asking for, like, come on.
Ice chips. Cloud is like, nah. Call a thing a thing, beloved. All right, so quotes from the TARDIS.
We don't serve Negroes. Good, because I don't eat them. Ryan.
By the way...
He's so reckless, but I was like...
so reckless. Like, right? He wasn't wrong.
That is, like... I don't know if y'all... Because we just talked about our crazy aunts and whatever. I have a crazy uncle...
We all do.
...who tells a story about saying that. And I believe him, because he is that reckless.
That's the kind of thing my dad would say, absolutely.
So I was also like, you telling dad jokes now, Ryan? And also like, no, bro, you just got punched in the face. Like,
literally.
I both calm down.
The doctor said we have to still be here, and you already trying to, like, Rosa said, don't get lynched, and you said, let me tell this white woman again that I don't eat black people. But also, it was a fire line.
It was a fire line, but it was
fire
also
delivery. But also, I clenched so hard.
You're not old and black. Like, an older black guy could have probably got away with that. Listen, like, an old and tired.
He just knew what era he was in.
I was both, like, laughing and also extremely nervous. I don't know if that's, like, possible, where, like, your body is real tense, but, like, it's also funny. It's like, God. It's easier for me here. It's more dangerous for you. So, again, just the doctor, like, actively acknowledging and not having to be reminded, too, that, like, she's traveling with people of color.
Right.
Don't chill the vibe, Graham, which, like, whew.
Evergreen.
Evergreen quote from the TARDIS.
We're not harboring anyone who doesn't have a right to be here.
I saw that and I was like, I love a semantic.
Right. And then it was the other thing she said too was the same thing. I don't recognize anyone by that description, which was also in the same, like, don't talk about my friends that way, like, they belong here. I'm not going to subscribe to your language, even as I, like, have to play along and sort of not agree with you, but camouflage myself into this era.
Yeah.
But while still resisting the language.
Mm-hmm.
I love, as Robin said, I do love a good semantic, like, for real.
Boom! Don't do that.
Which is funny because
Which reminded me of Who the Man?
Yeah.
Oh. No, I was going to say it reminded me of Rose and Martha and Donna all trying to speak whatever language was happening, like whatever era they were in, and 10 going, don't do that. Please don't do that.
Verily, there's egads. Egads.
No, don't do that.
She's like, pip, cheerio. It's like, not necessary.
And nice one, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan.
So good.
I had to pause.
All right, now I have to go. Now I have to drive this car. Okay. All right, I did it. All right. Woo! Just like the out of breathness. The out of breathness.
You popped up on the bus like, guess who got rid of your boy?
He did, though. I do appreciate that he got to, like, the doctor didn't do anything. You know, like, she wasn't involved in the, like, climactic. She was, like, there for, you know, obviously Rosa, but she wasn't the one to get rid of this, like, awful racist villain. And, like, for Rosa was all about Rosa, even though they tried to sprinkle a little graham cracker crust on there. So, like, I appreciate that she didn't really do anything, especially in that Ryan got to be the hero in this particular episode and for that particular, and, like, to send that particular villain away. I do wonder where exactly he sent him, because he said as far back as you can go, but, like, what does that, like, what was that set for? What does that mean? We've seen the beginning of the universe.
Dinosaurs?
But like, is it dinosaurs, or is it like whenever that little spider creature from that Donna episode was born, like, or put into the center of the earth or whatever? Like, how far back does it really mean? Is it before the earth existed? I just have questions because I wonder if we'll see him again. Basically, is what I'm saying. I wonder if they set up that demise for him to return, or is it just because, like, none of the villains have. Wait, am I forgetting last week? None of the villains have died yet? Yeah.
There wasn't a villain to die last week. It was...
Yeah, there was just the race and that guy who kind of was just like a jerk and just, like, snapped a tent away. So, like, none of the villains have died, so I'm curious if... Because, you know, they're trying to set up a new, like, villains, you know, Rose Gallery, basically, for 13, and obviously we'll see some old ones coming back, but I wonder if the reason why they're not killing them off so far is to introduce them, or, like, to have us speculate of, like, oh, if we don't kill any of them off, they'll wonder which ones will come back. So I wonder how far they sent our racist man, and if we'll see him again.
Cool. So check out blackgirlscreate.org, where you can find writing and podcasts and just stuff.
And if you want to write for us, submit.
Yes. To the Critical Companion series. Follow us on Twitter at WeBlackandNerds. Use the hashtag TARDIS to talk about Doctor Who things. Join our Slack, where we have a channel dedicated to conversations about Doctor Who. Rate and review us on iTunes and where podcasts are found. And TARDIS is a part of Hard Knock Media, which is the Nerds of Color podcast network that includes podcasts such as Hard Knock Life, Southern Fried Asian, DCTV Classics, Ask Bi Girls, They See Geek Girls, We're Not All Ninjas in That Moment. You can check out our podcast and all of these podcasts at hardnocmedia.com.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope we met your expectations. And if you have other questions, you can reach out to us on the Twitters, as she said. And you can join us next week when we discuss episode 4, Arachnids in the UK.
The black girls have the box.